In this journey, you will discover the rise and fall of ancient Mesopotamia, humanity's first civilization. We will trace the path from the Sumerians to the Babylonians and Assyrians, learn about the invention of writing, the exploits of Sargon, the laws of Hammurabi, and the fall of great cities. This is a deep, atmospheric voyage into the past, perfect for sleep, rest, and meditation. Long before the great empires, when deserts had not yet been conquered, and kings had not built their palaces from gold and lapis lazuli, even before the era when scribes began preserving history on clay tablets. A profound silence reigned here. Only the whisper of wind over empty plains disturbed this stillness. This was Mesopotamia, the land between two rivers, gently drowning in quietude, beneath an endless sky, framed by the Tigris and Euphrates. The world seemed to hold its breath, awaiting its moment. The first signs of civilization began to emerge like rays of morning sun piercing through shadow, awakening life in a realm that had long dwelt in darkness. On the fertile strip, scattered with sediments from annual floods, small groups of people gathered. These first settlers, once wanderers who navigated rivers and followed stars, sought places abundant with figs, dates, and grain. Over time, like waves, they revealed the secrets of fertile soils. Learning that land could be persuaded to yield harvests year after year, they discovered agriculture. This greatest invention of humanity was born quietly on the riverbanks of Mesopotamia. When the first seeds pierced the fertile earth, villages sprouted like children, quietly unfolding their world. Huts molded from reeds and clay arose along the riverbanks, where families united beneath skies, where stars seemed so close that each mysteriously watched and guarded everything from above. In these simple shelters, people whispered of hopes for stability and abundance, and for generations, these dreams merged with reality. With each new settlement along the Tigris and Euphrates, life grew more complex. Fields demanded care and organization. Irrigation canals required attention and nurturing. Thus, people learned to cooperate and communicate. Small communities slowly transformed into ancient settlements, where echoes of antiquity still resonate today. Around 6,000 years ago, on the rich soil of southern Mesopotamia, the first true cities were born. Among them rose Uruk majestically, whose name echoed through the centuries. This city became a place where humanity made its grand breakthrough. Uruk transformed into a city of remarkable inventions, where thousands of people crowded within its fortress walls. Life here thrived around a magnificent temple complex, and against the flat landscape rose a majestic ziggurat, a stepped pyramid molded from clay bricks that dried under gentle rays of sun. The ziggurat, a magnificent temple erected to honor the gods of sky and love, became not only a sacred place, but the heart of the city. In its shadow gathered believers seeking to reconcile with incomprehensible gods, feeling their might and mystery. During Uruk's golden age, craftsmen shaped clay vessels with exquisite patterns, reflecting water eddies and celestial lights. Carpenters and metalworkers crafted tools from copper and bronze that promoted the fertility of the land. Under reed canopies, markets slowly grew, where voices of merchants rang out, exchanging grain, wool, clay goods, and precious beads of lapis lazuli. This amazing stone, blue as a drop of sky, descended from distant mountains, caught sunlight, playing with light and shadow. But the true breakthrough in Uruk's history was the quiet birth of the art of words among humble scribes working in the temple, facing the growing complexity of trade and administration. These first scribes began pressing simple pictographs onto clay tablets, symbols of grain, sheep, oil, and numbers. Initially conceived as accounting for supplies and payments, this simple beginning materialized into writing, the first form of human expression preserved through time. Known as cuneiform, this ancient script evolved from simple hieroglyphs to a complex system capable of holding within itself stories, myths, laws, and dreams. Once cuneiform tablets carried the words of poets and kings, heroes and priests through the ages. But in early times, writing was merely a convenient tool helping people preserve information beyond their lifetimes. While Uruk flourished, new cities appeared on the fertile river banks. Cities like Eridu, one of the world's oldest, became places of worship dedicated to Enki, god of wisdom and fresh waters. In ancient Ur, where future rulers were born, temple towers soared toward heaven, as if striving for unreachable heights. Trade routes extended far beyond Mesopotamia, penetrating distant lands of Egypt, Anatolia, and the Indus Valley. Caravans laden with precious metals, exotic woods, and rare stones crossed deserts and mountains, weaving the peoples of ancient civilizations into a remarkable network of cultural exchange. In this world of expanding civilization, life flowed smoothly and measuredly, rhythmically pulsing to the beats of floods and harvests, sun and moon. Gods permeated all existence, whispering their messages in prayers directed toward the stars. Rivers, life-giving and untamed, sometimes granted life, sometimes swept away everything in their path, reminding people of their merciless power. In the heart of ancient communities grew a sense of unity, with a world full of mysteries and divine grandeur. Life flowed slowly, like river waters, continuously changing, yet remaining comfortably familiar, under the gentle light of the moon, under the protection of stars that had illuminated people's path for centuries. The inhabitants of Mesopotamia slept peacefully, confident that dawn would come, bringing a new day with gentle progress, hidden discoveries, and dreams carried beyond the horizon. Few knew that their modest settlements and simple inventions would become the foundation for all future civilizations. In Mesopotamia's embryo, life quietly flowed along the river, its waters smoothly carried forward, nourishing the earth. Each dawn painted the horizon with gold and lavender, revealing endless fields of barley swaying in the light morning breeze. Inhabitants awakened to whispering rivers and bird song, beginning their days in rhythm, created by nature. Yet amid this quiet simplicity, seeds of great changes were sprouting. As Uruk and Eridu flourished, people not only labored to create necessary tools, but also shaped culture. Clay pottery became works of art, decorated with drawings of rivers, stars, animals, and gods. These symbols reflected humanity's connection with nature. Music filled evenings with melodies floating through the air. Harps, flutes, and lyres made from wood or ivory sang stories without words. These were tales of gods, heroes, love, and time. These gentle sounds caressed the ear, uniting people in communities of peace. During this time, humanity delved deeper into relationships with the divine. Temples wisely erected, brick by brick, stretched toward the sky, drawing gazes to the heights. In the sacred spaces of ziggurats, priests and priestesses performed rituals, praying for fertility, protection, and wisdom in uncertain times. The gods Enki, Anu, and Inanna were believed to dwell among the clouds, watching over from above. In each city stood confidently the image of a patron deity, a supreme ruler in whom inhabitants placed their hopes for well-being and prosperity. In ancient Uruk, they deified Inanna, the gracious goddess whose energy manifested in festivals with exquisite feasts, dances, and poetry praising her omnipotence. In Eridu, pilgrims made long journeys to kneel before Enki, the wise keeper of knowledge and sources, whose silent voice, they said, brought clarity to wise minds. Life in these lands was full of trials. Rivers that nourished fertile fields could suddenly overflow their banks, washing away homes and destroying harvests in the fury of floods, like the anger of celestial beings offended by human transgression. People did not retreat before challenges, but met them boldly and inventively, creating irrigation systems, canals, and dams. These first engineering endeavors transformed harsh nature into a favorable environment for life and development. By studying natural laws, they learned to control river flows, gently directing them to fertile fields where crops of barley, wheat, and lentils thrived. Where anxiety once reigned, abundance and prosperity now flourished. Over time, these thriving communities became magnets for many who came from distant villages seeking security and better life offered by the growing city-states of Mesopotamia. With each new arrival, the social fabric became more complex, and society acquired new shades and forms, reflecting the diversity and richness of life in this amazing corner of light. Skilled craftsmen, merchants, builders, and artists flourished in cities, contributing their unique talents to the common portrait of social prosperity. But with increasing wealth came new problems. Social divides grew deeper. The first leaders, priests, and military commanders emerged, governing their communities through dialogue or battles. Cities like Uruk and began to surround themselves with walls, symbolizing not only protection, but pride. Though competition between cities sometimes led to tensions, the age of cities was generally a period of cooperation rather than conflicts. Along ancient river paths and caravan roads, trade flourished, carrying Mesopotamian heritage far beyond the boundaries of the Tigris and Euphrates. Precious metals arrived from Anatolia, lapis lazuli from distant Afghanistan, and timber from the cedar forests of Lebanon. In return, Mesopotamians sent out their pottery, textiles, and grain, weaving a web of trade and friendship across vast lands. But perhaps the most valuable gift they brought to the world was the art of storytelling. Around blazing fires, elders poured out tales of creation, exploits, and heroism, passing wisdom from age to age. In antiquity, among many legends, shone the story of Gilgamesh, ruler of Uruk, whose fate intertwined myth, history, and poetry. Gilgamesh, a being 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, embodied the dreams and terrors of his people. He set out on a quest for immortality, but learned the beauty of living moments and the warmth of simple human companionship. Eternal life proved unattainable, but his story became eternal, carved on clay tablets throughout the ages. Such tales brought comfort and understanding in this vast and unpredictable world. Under gentle stars and softly glowing moons of Mesopotamia, inhabitants built their lives like weaving fabric from ancient motifs. Their dreams did not fly to distant stars, but sailed along the quiet river of time, filled with desire for stability and harmony. In every corner of their modest cities rang the gentle music of the soul, while careful records and rich life stories became threads connecting past and future. Unaware that their labor and creativity would become the foundation for all human civilization, they built their communities with love and growing complexity. Their children grew strong, and their legacy would carry through the ages, inspiring cultures that did not yet exist. When night again enveloped the fertile plains between the rivers, silence descended over ancient Mesopotamia. People slept under soft clouds, convinced of their safety in houses of dried bricks. The whisper of rivers carried their dreams through the night toward future great kings and mighty empires yet to appear. Mesopotamia rested, comforted by the presence of gods watching over it, guardians of civilization awakening to its amazing destiny. When centuries stretched in silence in ancient Mesopotamia, modest villages transformed into magnificent cities, animating the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates. Under the gentle rays of the Mesopotamian sun began a new era, the time of Sumer. This was a civilization that elevated simple beginnings to eternal wonders. Sumer, born around 5,000 years ago in southern Mesopotamia, represented a mosaic of independent city-states. Each arose on fertile land with dreams of prosperity. Uruk, Lagash, Eridu, Nippur, each of these cities developed in its own way, becoming a unique world full of incredible possibilities. In the land of Sumer reigned pride, but the bond between inhabitants was strong. They were united by common language, faith, and culture. Each city-state had its patron deity, a divine guardian leading daily life from high temples. In Ur ruled Nana, god of the moon, illuminating nights with silver light. In Lagash, god Ningirsu guarded harvests and granted abundance of grain. The city of Nippur worshipped Enlil, the mighty god of air and storms, whose voice sounded in thunderstorms and gentle breezes. At the center of each city rose a ziggurat, a magnificent temple whose steps strove toward heaven, connecting earth and sky. Its walls consisted of sun-baked clay bricks carefully stacked upon each other. In their aspiration to the divine, Sumerians erected ziggurats whose golden contours were felt at sunset and dawn, like messengers of heaven. These monuments, majestic and sublime, symbolized the soul of each state, their twinkling lights greeting travelers for miles. Under their shadow came alive markets, where rang the voices of merchants offering jewels and fabrics from distant lands. Local craftsmen displayed pottery with patterns and bronze goods that captured the imagination. Patterned fabrics and spice aromas created a mosaic of scents. Street passages abundantly filled with conversations. Words flowed like water in the channel of ancient rivers. Through narrow alleyways of houses slowly flowed the stream of daily life. Early mornings families rose to tend fields irrigated by elegant canals that meandered through the landscape. Children rejoiced in green courtyards, their joyful laughter carried by warm wind. Men and women shared duties, threshing grain, baking bread in clay ovens, and spinning wool for cozy garments for cold evenings. But Sumer meant not only domestic peace. Here arose amazing innovations that quietly reshaped the very essence of civilization. Above all, stood their writing system, a powerful tool that quickly transformed into a universal medium. In antiquity, what began as simple accounting grew into skillful art. Scribes, like virtuosos, wielded reeds, breathing life into clay tablets. After firing, knowledge became eternal, passing from generation to generation. In schools at temples, students, like silent monks, learned the art of writing. Patiently and precisely, they repeated symbols, carefully forming their skills. This knowledge was the key to civilization's survival through the ages. In ancient Sumer, besides writing, Sumerians created technologies that quietly but revolutionarily changed daily life. The wheel, modest but great invention, first saw light here. Initially, wheels were simple wooden discs attached to carts, making cargo transportation much easier. Potters immediately adapted wheels for creating exquisite ceramics, spinning vessels quickly and evenly, transforming crafts into art. Mathematics in Sumer flourished, growing from daily needs. Sumerians developed a complex counting system based on the number 60, laying the foundation for the 60-minute hour and 360-degree circle we still use today. On narrow streets of Sumeria, merchants quickly calculated debts, while astronomers, like magicians, enthusiastically recorded the mysterious dances of stars and planets. The heavens above the city, like a great canvas, inspired awe in inhabitants. Astronomers, rising to temple peaks, carefully watched the night vault, as if listening to the wise whispers of gods. They meticulously compiled star charts, recorded eclipses, and delicately fixed the secret phases of the moon. Their observations were not only scientific, but permeated with deep spiritual rapture, combining knowledge with a sense of peace. At the same time, medicine quietly emerged in Sumer, becoming art and science, permeating inhabitants' lives with hope and care. In antiquity, wise healers, carefully studying the world, found healing remedies within it. On clay plates were preserved recipes for herbs, ointments, and prayers to merciful gods. This combination of wisdom and faith brought comfort in illness, reflecting harmony in society. Despite successes, inhabitants faced trials. Rivers that granted life could become sources of trouble, flooding fields and homes. But each flood brought lessons. Canals expanded, dams grew, cities became safer. In the depths of time, an inseparable connection arose between inhabitants and nature in the lands of Sumer, weaving bonds between rivers and people. Joint efforts brought harmony, allowing prosperity and feeling safe. In this dance of innovations and traditions, Sumerian society found its structure. Kings did not sit as despots, but became guardians and leaders chosen by heaven. They commanded temples, led armies in battles, and judged the people by law. Their power was woven with divine approval, preserved in sacred rites, the memory of rulers' unwavering responsibility to their people. In the shadow of ancient walls flourished Sumer. Its cities majestically rose under the clear vault of heaven. In the evenings, people gathered by fires, sharing legends about gods and heroes, about fates full of wisdom and honor. The future remained a mystery to them. They lived in the present, thinking about family, society, and daily concerns in which they found warmth and meaning. Sumer disappeared, but memory of it lives. Its gifts, writing, the wheel, mathematics, the art of governance, survived the centuries. They became the foundation upon which all future civilizations were built. Under the gentle light of twilight, inhabitants of ancient Sumer rested peacefully, not suspecting that their world would be shaken to its roots. Sumerian cities flourished gently under the Mesopotamian sun, each harmoniously embodying innovations and traditions passed down through generations. Their daily life was saturated with rituals and routines filled with faith in harmony, wisdom, and sanctity. In all spheres of society, Sumerians found balance between innovation and reverence, practicality and spirituality, collectivism and individualism. At the center of this balance rose temples, great shrines of Sumerian civilization. In ancient temples, surrounded by sacred walls, priests and priestesses conducted their rituals with wisdom and reverence. Their voices smoothly filled the air with prayers and chants dedicated to gods, patrons of humanity. Temples were not only places of spiritual comfort, but cultural centers, storing grain supplies in huge granaries, recording harvests and trade, and providing shelter and help in difficult times. Here, scribes carefully recorded daily events, births, and weddings, creating a record of life itself that was carefully preserved for future generations. Beyond the sacred walls, the life of ordinary people flowed in the calm rhythm of fields and marketplaces, where each day awakened new hopes and dreams. Each dawn, farmers set out to their fields, even before the sun rose, to care for their crops. Barley, wheat, onions, garlic, and dates. They gently watered them with irrigated canals, tenderly caring for each sprout. Shepherds led herds to pasture, and the soft bleating of sheep intertwined with the morning song of birds. Craftsmen opened their workshops, molding clay, spinning wool, forging bronze, and carving wood, creating useful tools and elegant objects that filled homes with warmth and simple beauty. Markets opened their doors with the first rays of sun, decorated with bright awnings protecting sellers. Here trade took place in light conversation and laughter, exchanging goods and stories under the gentle light of morning. In the world of ancient societies, neighbors not only exchanged goods, they exchanged pieces of their souls. Grain for fabrics, clay pottery for aromatic spices, copper tools for the gleam of lapis lazuli beads. Each transaction was like a ritual of friendship and mutual understanding. Trade became a sacred act, uniting hearts through common interests and goodness. At this time, education was emerging like a light in the dark world. First schools, modest buildings next to temples, became places where young minds learned writing. On clay tablets were born lines of literature, numbers of mathematics, secrets of astronomy, and wisdom of history. Teachers, strict but caring, inspired their students on the path of knowledge, teaching them to value precision, patience, and respect for wisdom. From these respected schools, graduates grew into wise administrators, skilled scribes, devoted priests, and great leaders who guided their city-states with love and compassion. In the heart of Sumerian civilization lived the joy of leisure, enjoyment of quiet pleasures, embodied in enthusiasm and creativity. Annual festivals thickened community spirit, filling streets with the sound of music, ringing poetry, dances, and feasts. Inhabitants reverently paid tribute to their deities, remembering them with sincere peace. The New Year festival was a particularly bright event, symbolizing life's renewal and Earth's fertility. During these celebrations, even monarchs actively participated, strengthening the bond between rulers and subjects in an atmosphere of general merriment and unity. However, troubles arose on the path of prospering cities. Jealousy of nomadic tribes for their wealth more than once forced them to be on guard. Competition for resources such as water and fertile lands created tension among city-states. Wars happened rarely, but sometimes inevitably, though more often resolved peacefully rather than by bloodshed. Armies, consisting mainly of ordinary citizens armed with bronze spears and shields, gathered to defend their cities. Even during conflicts, Sumer's inhabitants strove for swift settlement of disputes, preferring peace and stability to continuing disagreements. In antiquity arose the first known laws. Rulers issued codes on clay tablets, establishing them in city squares. These laws resolved disputes about property, trade, and marriage. They reflected society's striving for justice and stability. People gathered before monuments, knowing their rights and duties. Rules were gentle, aimed at peace and prosperity. Parallel to this flourished Sumerian culture, inspiring magnificent literary works. In antiquity, poets and scribes wove words into epic tales, hymns, and prayers, revealing human souls and divine mysteries. Among them shone the epic of Gilgamesh, a wise story of a king striving for immortality. Listeners absorbed the plot, finding in it reflection of their fears and dreams. These stories comforted, inspired, and taught the values of courage and tenderness. In Sumerian art, statues came alive under craftsmen's skilled hands, embodying the magic of quiet beauty and grandeur. Elegant bronze sculptures decorated with semi-precious stones caressed the eye with their beauty, reflecting harmony and respect for natural harmony. Clay goods and cylindrical seals decorated with patterns, revealed a very fine sense of aesthetics. Architecture also did not stay aside. Houses became more spacious and cozy, built from carefully sun-dried bricks. Interior courtyards brought freshness and peace to the bustle of city streets. Palaces and temples were decorated with colorful frescoes depicting life and mythology, creating an atmosphere of refinement and grandeur. The layout of ancient Sumerian cities reflected harmony and balance. Streets, orderly and logical, led to central squares, temples, and markets. Sewage systems, modest but functional, reflected an refined approach to city life. At night, cities plunged into silence under the twinkling blanket of stars. Families gathered by the soft light of lamps, sharing food and stories. Children listened to elders, absorbing the gentle wisdom of stories full of adventures and comforting morals. Under the peaceful evening sky of Sumer, life continued its quiet path like a flowing river of time. Traditions and innovation intertwined in a unique pattern, protecting inhabitants' souls. In their secluded homes and hearts reigned peace, for they knew their achievements, laws, architecture, art would pass through the ages, sounding in the hearts of future generations. Under the cover of night's sleep, the city-state of Sumer immersed itself in the aroma of dreams, not suspecting what variables tomorrow would bring. Under stars radiating eternal wisdom, civilization quietly dreamed, not foreseeing that its legacy would continue its great journey through the ages, inspiring humanity to the greatest achievements. Under the vast sky of Mesopotamia, changes came unnoticed, like the moon illuminating ancient lands. But sometimes history accelerated, carried forward by great personalities whose ambitions influenced the fates of civilizations. Such a fate befell Sargon, a modest man who rose to greatness. His story began in mystery, wrapped in layers of legend and admiration. Born around 2,334 years ago, his early life is shrouded in the mystery of time. Ancient Mesopotamian scribes immortalized his legend with a note of mysticism, telling how Sargon was placed in a woven basket and released down the Euphrates River as an infant. This momentous moment reminded of future great rulers whose names were not yet written in the stars. found and saved by a kind gardener named Aki, Sargon grew up in modest conditions. His childhood was steeped in simple joys and labor, tending gardens under the scorching Mesopotamian sun. His life was filled with modesty and constancy. However, with age, ambition awakened within him, quiet and persistent, like a river carving its path through hard stones. In ancient times of Sumeria, the land of Sumer remained a mosaic of independent cities, each with its own proud soul. But under the benevolent face of prosperity lurked hidden contradictions. Disputes flared over land plots, water sources, trade routes, and political influence. Into this fragile balance stepped Sargon, whose vision of unity forever changed the landscape of Mesopotamia. His path to greatness began quietly when he was merely a cupbearer to the ruler of the city-state of Kish, King Ur-Zababa. Despite the modesty of his position, this gave Sargon proximity to power, an opportunity to observe the mechanisms of government and diplomacy. Sargon listened, learned, and patiently awaited the moment when he could reveal his true potential. This moment struck Kish unexpectedly, like a whisper gently carried by winds. The city often entered conflicts with neighbors, especially with Uruk, ruled by the mighty king Lugalzagesi. Under pressure, Sargon acted decisively and cunningly, gathering loyal followers among the military and citizens. He quietly assembled an army, small but devoted. He seized power in Kish, establishing himself as the new ruler. Instead of internal conflicts, he turned his gaze outward, led by a vision unexplored by predecessors. In the misty evening light of Mesopotamia spread the picture of Sargon's might. He, like a shadow, slowly expanded his domains, using a clever combination of diplomacy and force. Cities fell before him, feeling the superiority of unity over discord. Some resisted, but their resistance was quickly broken by Sargon's disciplined troops. Each captured city he embraced with cautious respect but firm hand, preserving their shrines and customs while emphasizing his unwavering authority. In an epic clash with Lugalzagesi of Uruk, who claimed dominion over southern Mesopotamia, Sargon demonstrated his strength and determination. asserting his right to greatness. Sargon's small but disciplined troops moved precisely under the leadership of their leader's strategic genius. Lugal-Zag-Si was defeated. His city peacefully entered Sargon's rapidly expanding domains. This victory symbolized a quiet but profound transition from independent city-states to forming the world's first true empire. Uniting Mesopotamia under his gentle but firm rule, Sargon created a new capital, Akkad. Strategically located on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Akkad became not just a city, but the heart of a new living civilization. Here merged elements of Sumerian culture and unique innovations inherent only to the Akkadians. Through narrow streets of the ancient city, diverse voices merged into the melody of life. Merchants' cries, craftsmen's hammering, scribes' pen scratching, and soldiers tramping. In this world created by Emperor Sargon, cultures, languages, and customs merged. One of his significant decisions was adopting Akkadian as the official language. Although Sumerian remained the language of culture, religion, and science, Akkadian spread quickly. Scribes throughout the empire mastered this language, printing decrees and laws on clay tablets. Under Sargon's wise leadership, trade flourished, bringing prosperity and abundance. The magnificent empire, stretching from the azure waters of the Persian Gulf to the boundless expanses of the Mediterranean Sea, opened the path of trade, extending its invisible threads across deserts and seas. Ships, like arrows, swiftly glided over waves, while caravans slowly crossed hot sands, bringing treasures of the East. Merchants from all corners of the world, from Egypt, Anatolia, and the Indus Valley, converged in Akkad and other cities, blurring boundaries and enriching culture and peoples. Sargon skillfully governed the empire, respecting local customs and beliefs, nourishing the souls of priests and priestesses, protecting temples and improving rituals, making him ruler not only of land, but of hearts of subjects. Sargon's magnanimity strengthened the loyalty of diverse peoples who saw in him a protector of customs, not merely a conqueror. Despite great achievements, he remained modest, aware of life's fragility. Silently, he wandered through Akkad streets, delving into citizens' daily concerns. His rule was warm and humane, permeated with sincere compassion. At court, poets and musicians praised his wisdom and strength, creating hymns and stories in beautiful style. Stories about great Sargon floated throughout the empire like gentle wind, carried from secluded village to pulsating city. They reminded every inhabitant of the connection and prosperity that this great ruler brought in his peaceful reign. As evening slowly descended upon the earth, people returned to their cozy homes, feeling protected in the atmosphere that Sargon created in Akkad. Under the sparkling starry vault reflected in quiet waters, inhabitants gathered in market squares, filling them with their conversations and laughter. Their voices merged in united sound of community, creating harmony and warmth. Under Sargon's wise leadership, Mesopotamia entered a new era of unity, prosperity, and peace, becoming an example for many other civilizations. No one could foresee how long this harmony would last, and how descendants would remember that modest but great man whose life path began as a quiet river but led to great achievements. When twilight enveloped Akkad and the empire's cities, dreams of peace and unity found place on earth, under the influence of a calming leader whose peaceful influence forever changed the course of history. In the post-war years following Sargon's rise to power, Mesopotamia flourished under Akkad skies, land wrapped in the warmth of visions of one whose dreams became reality. Under Sargon's wise leadership, the Akkadian Empire blossomed like a colorful painting where different peoples wove together in amazing harmony. His empire, vast and peaceful, stretching from the warm shores of the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, was a magnificent spectacle. Within this extensive territory existed different cultures, enriching each other and exchanging ideas and crafts. This was not merely a collection of lands, but a true cultural celebration where traditions intertwined, creating something unique and familiar to all inhabitants. At the center of all this magnificence rose Akkad. On the bustling streets of ancient Mesopotamia, voices rang out, interweaving in the melody of trade. Merchants from distant lands displayed before passers-by eyes, bright fabrics, gleaming jewels, and aromatic spices. From Egypt and distant India came traders with mysterious treasures, telling stories of world wonders. With evening's arrival, when the sun touched earth, shadows on the market square grew longer, enveloping the day's bustle in night's soft mantle. Meanwhile, in Akkadian palaces and temples, scribes worked enthusiastically, inscribing every detail on clay tablets. With caring attention, they recorded not only decrees and laws, but poems, hymns, narratives about life and customs of ancient times. Their works became not just document, but living testimonies to culture's wealth and beauty, intended as heritage for future generations. Sargon, the great ruler, looked upon the flourishing civilization with pride and peace. He carefully formed his bureaucracy, preferring wise and deserving officials rather than noble birth. Thus, he created a just society where talent and honesty were valued. Governors under his leadership were reliable and decisive, maintaining peace and order, expanding influence without violence. Roads built under his administration connected cities and villages, promoting trade prosperity and connections between peoples. These thoroughfares became bridges for ideas and innovations, penetrating vast distances easily and imperceptibly. For the first time, Mesopotamian lands felt unity within themselves, interwoven by friendly paths leading through cities. But despite the empire's stability, Sargon always felt some anxiety. He well understood the subtle tensions in leadership. His rule required constant attention and caution as ambitious rivals tested Akkad's might. However, through wisdom rather than cruelty, he skillfully overcame challenges, preferring diplomacy to conflicts, negotiations to force. Through peaceful solutions, he secured long-term alliances and mutual respect, ensuring peace in the empire. As its influence flourished and spread, Akkadian culture penetrated every corner of Mesopotamia like an invisible vortex, carrying wealth and wisdom. Literary works, authorized by the spirit of early Sumerian creations, bloomed like a magnificent oasis in the desert. Stories about Sargon's life, mixing threads of myth and reality, spread from city to city, stirring minds and hearts. Poets, like music masters, praised his modest beginning and amazing rise, establishing his image as a merciful lord chosen by deities. Art and architecture flourished together with Akkad's spiritual prosperity. palaces became true masterpieces, decorated with frescoes and reliefs, in which daily life and magnificent rites came alive. Magnificent temples rising in honor of Akkadian gods and Sumerian gods, impressed with their architecture, combining ancient customs with innovations, symbolizing the empire's unity and diversity. Sargon's life is shrouded in respect and mystery, but it's known he had a daughter named Enheduanna, whose legacy compared with her father's greatness. Enheduanna, gifted with poetic talent, was a priestess of goddess Nana in Ur. Her hymns and poems captured human reverence for the divine. On clay tablets are carved Enheduanna's words, the most ancient writings belonging to a specific author. This is a quiet but great achievement, sounding through the ages. Sargon, noting old age, deeply reflected on the empire's fate, preparing to transfer power. He wisely guided his sons, instilling in them wisdom, justice, and humility, qualities he himself possessed. Sargon understood the fragility of empires, created not only by force, but by bonds of trust, respect, and care that he carefully developed among his people. After ruling more than half a century, when history's shadows began to envelop him, Sargon quietly departed, leaving his empire adorned with the seal of his humanity. Inspired by his spirit, his successors continued building on his foundation, leading Mesopotamia through centuries of prosperity. But none could master that unique charm, compassion, and modest magnificence inherent to Sargon. The Akkadian Empire, like a river, flowed gently, preserving Sargon's spirit in its waters. However, time spares neither empires nor great kings. Future generations would face other storms, new trials, and changes that would determine their own path. After the Akkadian Empire's decline, Sargon's shadows continued flowing through time, hovering in stories, on tablets, in memories. His empire, as if under starlight, rested, permeated with calm and unity. Under moonlight, the Tigris and Euphrates flowed peacefully, as in days when Sargon only began his path. Families gathered around fires, retelling the story of the beloved king whose modest beginnings and gentle soul inspired an entire civilization. Having kissed the earth with their ancient bronze knees, the night in Mesopotamia's heart awakened inhabitants' dreams. They knew their empire rose not only through courage, but through care, wisdom, and tenderness. Living memory preserved Sargon's image, the great king of Akkad, testimony to peaceful power of dreams, determination, and human kindness. Under the vigilant gaze of stars, eternal guides of fate, Mesopotamia rested peacefully, feeling its rich heritage and awaiting the next chapter of its amazing history. Time, like the gentle splashing of the Euphrates, smoothly carried Mesopotamia forward, filling each moment with meaning and grandeur. Many generations later, when Sargon's great empire had become merely a mysterious echo of the past, a new city began its path to greatness. Babylon, this mystical city, rose slowly but steadily, like a star destined to illuminate the world. The pinnacle of this magnificence was reached by Hammurabi, a wise and just leader whose name became legend of the ages. Beginning its existence as a modest settlement on the Euphrates banks, Babylon quietly observed neighbors' misfortunes and successes. But from a small germ, the city began to flourish, becoming a center of culture, trade, and power. Its history began around 1810 BCE. In distant 1792 BCE, Hammurabi ascended Babylon's throne, inheriting a modest kingdom. His city-state was surrounded by mighty neighbors, Assyria to the north, Elam to the east, and many ambitious city-states in Mesopotamia. Despite difficulties, Hammurabi did not lose spirit. He was confident in himself, a man with vision and deep compassion, which made Babylon a symbol of civilization. First, he cautiously strengthened his city, restored walls, improved irrigation, replenished grain supplies for the people. Great Hammurabi strove for stability, peace, and gradual growth. He understood that prosperity required solid foundations based on trust, order, and justice. His approach to diplomacy was thoughtful. He skillfully strengthened alliances and peacefully resolved disputes with neighbors. When diplomacy didn't work, he intervened decisively but gently, ensuring quick conflict resolution and peace restoration. Through his wisdom, Hammurabi earned wide respect, making Babylon a city reliable in word and faithful in agreements. Gradually, through careful strategy and moderate ambition, he expanded his influence, strengthening his position. At his will, neighboring cities accepted Babylon's authority, convinced of the advantages of his governance. Each new piece of land peacefully joining the empire brought additional resources, enriching inhabitants' lives and weaving cities together with loyalty and mutual benefit. Hammurabi, the great genius, was not only a politician, but a face of justice. He understood that for empire prosperity, not only strength and wealth were needed, but justice, clarity, and compassion. This prompted him to create one of history's greatest legislative codes, leaving his mark on eternity. The code known today as Hammurabi's became an integral part of ancient Babylonian inhabitants' lives. Carved with love on a huge stone pillar, it brought more than 200 laws into their world, covering all spheres of life, from trade and property to marriage and medicine. This magnificent monument stood in the square's center, like a guardian of justice, greeting all who thirsted for justice. Hammurabi's laws were created to ensure harmony and justice in society. They clearly defined everyone's rights and duties, from nobles to commoners, from craftsmen to farmers. Each provision was imbued with balance between justice and compassion, punishment and mercy. Hammurabi vividly described his mission: to establish justice so the strong would not oppress the weak. This striving for justice brought prosperity to Babylonian society. Citizens knew their rights, believed in the system, and respected authority. Laws were applied clearly, creating a sense of security and trust between people of all social layers. Under Hammurabi's leadership, Babylon came alive culturally. The city flourished with magnificence, and its architecture rose with pride. Temples dedicated to gods like Marduk, Babylon's patron, were restored and expanded. Their houses were decorated with bright, glazed bricks, caressing the eye under Mesopotamian sun rays. On palace and public building walls were magnificent frescoes and carvings animating life, nature, and sacred rites. This beauty reflected the city's spiritual wealth. Hammurabi encouraged education, giving young men and women access to knowledge. Schools arose next to temples, offering classes in mathematics, writing, astronomy, and law. Young scribes labored, copying texts onto clay tablets, preserving cultural heritage, and expanding mental horizons. Poetry and literature flourished as a sign of the city's creative spirit. Under Babylon's transparent sky, in times when words possessed power, ruled great Hammurabi. He, like a philosopher king, nourished culture with his attention, as if fertilizing it with golden light. Artists, poets, musicians, astronomers, all were inspired by his support, putting a piece of soul into each masterpiece. Trade in his kingdom flourished like a river carrying treasures from afar. In Babylon's markets converged merchants bringing exquisite goods, aromatic spices, soft fabrics, gleaming jewels. Under Hammurabi's law's protection, trade became a symphony chorus where fair prices and pure measure sounded. And prosperity, like magical rain, abundantly irrigated empire life, filling it with warmth and abundance. In ancient Babylon's heart, under Hammurabi's rule, life flowed calmly like a quiet river. Houses built from clay and wood nestled in greenery of inner courtyards like peace islands. The smell of bread, dates, and fresh vegetables filled the air, sometimes tempted by meat aroma, generously shared in family circles by fire. Under lamps' soft light, elders told children magical stories, while teachers, like wise guides, instilled virtue and compassion in them. Though the kingdom basked in well-being, Hammurabi didn't lose vigilance. He modestly walked among his subjects, carefully listening to their requests and concerns. In his heart burned justice's fire, penetrating the most modest homes, comforting souls and ensuring peace and order. His presence was like comforting wind caressing citizens and reminding them of their ruler's care. Under Hammurabi's wise leadership, Babylon flourished quietly, like a flower, blooming in spring sun's gentle rays. His reputation slowly spread along Mesopotamia's sandy roads, penetrating neighboring kingdoms' hearts. They admired the great state's stability, justice, and prosperity, seeking friendship and alliance with this civilization oasis. Despite praise and admiration, Hammurabi remained modest, like a star on the firmament, aware of his role and responsibility. He was inspired not by pride, but by justice and compassion, eternally wisely leading his people. Each evening, when sunset's golden rays spread on the horizon, families peacefully gathered behind Babylon's walls, built by Hammurabi's caring hands, feeling warmth and protection in them. Under skies where stars quietly twinkle, spread great Babylon under wise Hammurabi's leadership. Here reigned justice, compassion, and high culture, a city where dreams materialized under civilization's gentle light, illuminating Mesopotamia's plains. With each new day, Babylon prospered, becoming a bright, precious stone in the ancient world's heart, where dreams, knowledge, and justice coexisted. Hammurabi, soul of the Golden Age, wisely led his people, remaining a symbol of wisdom and prudence for all times. Babylon's great legislative code, created by Hammurabi, not only regulated citizens' lives, but introduced new understanding of leadership. For him, kingship became not just divine privilege, but sacred duty, linking him with people through bonds of trust, justice, and service. Everywhere in daily life echoed his laws. In market squares, merchants exchanged goods with confidence in clear and fair rules protection. Beyond the city, farmers worked fields, knowing their rights to land and water access were protected by law. In the most tangled disputes about debts, marriage, or inheritance, inhabitants turned to written word, believing in justice rooted in common values. Under Hammurabi's caring leadership, education flourished. Schools expanded, libraries grew, scribes recorded not only transactions and decrees, but poetry, myths, astronomy, and medicine. Literacy became a valuable gift, and knowledge passed from generation to generation like sacred fire carried through ages. Babylonian scholars studied stars, recording celestial bodies' movements with amazing precision. In the ancient world, sky experts studied constellations, predicted eclipses, and compiled calendars by lunar cycle. This was not just science, but spiritual immersion in God's messages secretly woven in night sky's carpet. Doctors and healers in their work combined herbs, surgery, and vigilant observation. Their methods, immortalized in texts, united earthly practices with heavenly pleas. In Babylon, illness was perceived as physical and spiritual burden, requiring body care and soul prayers. Art and architecture of the era rose to unprecedented heights of beauty and grace. Magnificent temples soared toward heaven, decorated with bright glazed tiles, as if captivating sun rays and shimmering like Carved figures on walls told stunning stories of gods, kings, and ordinary mortals. Their images were filled with tenderness and details as if revived from the past. Melodies filled the atmosphere, sounds of harps, flutes, drums brought rhythm and joy to street crowds and garden quiet. All this happened under Hammurabi's supervision, embodiment of stability and compassion. He often traveled throughout his empire, visiting distant cities and villages, carefully listening to complaints, resolving disputes, and maintaining connection between king and subjects. His journeys were not noisy conquests, but quiet pilgrimages to strengthen trust and devotion. With age, Hammurabi thought about what he would leave behind. He understood that Babylon's strength lay not only in walls and wealth, but in ideas, in the belief that justice and compassion were civilization's foundations. He carefully prepared his heirs so his principles would live after him. Sons learned not only military and governance, but ethics, law, diplomacy. Hammurabi's vision was built not on fleeting glory, but on long-term peace based on wisdom and justice. At his life sunset, Hammurabi met Babylon's golden age bloom. Trade routes intertwined through Mesopotamia, extending beyond its borders, connecting goods, ideas, and cultures in deep carpet fabric. Babylon became not only a trade center, but a sanctuary of knowledge and prosperity, its fame sparkling like a star in the ancient world sky. When Hammurabi left this world, it was like an elder's quiet departure, surrounded by civilization's warmth that he built. His departure marked an amazing era's end, but his spirit remained in laws he established, culture he glorified, and dreams he brought to life. The empire he erected would face unknown trials ahead. New rulers entered their positions. External threats weighed on the horizon, and internal divisions slowly penetrated society's fabric. But Babylon, great and eternal, like age's guardian, continued standing quiet and proud. Under star-studded sky vaults, its streets intertwined in life and hope patterns. Stars' radiance illuminated temples and palaces, while inhabitants, like ancient wisdom keepers, wove their fates. Under night's cover, Babylon breathed history, sang memory of its king Hammurabi, whose kindness forever remained in his people's hearts. The city became not just a dwelling place, it transformed into nobility and hope symbol, surviving many times and trials. In its walls sounded ages' wisdom, reminding all that civilization embodied in just and wise deeds could be light in darkness, good and peace force. Let centuries carry Babylon into legend's mist, but Hammurabi's time's sweet whisper will sound eternally, flowing into peoples' and tribes' fates through ages. Having quieted with its era, magnificent Sumer and Akkad were lost in memory. But Mesopotamia, with its fertile rivers and boundless skies, remained an enticing cradle for new beginnings. Among cities' ruins and forgotten walls, a powerful people slowly gathered strength in cold northern lands. Their name became known and frightening to many: Assyrians. In ancient Ashur city by the Tigris River lived Assyrians. The city, though modest, was their home. Merchants, craftsmen, farmers, hunters, all fit into nature's rhythms. Gods ruled over them, sternly but justly. Chief among them, Ashur, city protector, embodiment of fate. Under stars, like living heavenly candles, inhabitants prayed for strength and abundance. Their faith in endurance became integral part of life in this cozy corner of antiquity. Life in northern Mesopotamia demanded unwavering spirit. Land here was harsh, climate severe. Nomad attacks were commonplace, and survival required vigilance, cooperation, and strength. These conditions forged Assyrian spirit, unshakable, disciplined, patient. Early years were quiet, but over time, changes came like a river, carving channel in stone. Trade routes through Ashur connected Anatolia, Persia, and Egypt, bringing new wealth, ideas, and ambitions. Assyrian merchants traveled widely, exchanging tin, textiles, and lapis lazuli for gold, silver, and precious cedar wood. As their wealth grew, so did their ambitions. Assyrians didn't limit themselves to simple survival. They strove for more. Organizing more formally, they developed governance, taxation, and legislative systems, reflecting their society's complexity. Kings emerged, chosen not only by divine sovereignty, but by their ability to lead armies, provide protection, and expand domains. In these centuries, Assyrians began developing their main trait, military art. Unlike chaotic militias of early Mesopotamian cities, Assyrians created permanent, professional army, disciplined and unbending. Military might became their calling card, distinguishing them from other civilizations of that time. All years, warriors here trained. Their arrows precisely found targets, swords spun in their hands like body extensions, and chariots thundered, whipping wind dust. Engineers created military science, marvels, siege machines, rams, digging sappers, and killer towers, terrifying city defenders. Assyrian army, like a beast, moved across battlefield, frightening with its speed and strength. But not only force made them terrifying. Their organization, logistics, and discipline made Assyrians invincible. Their conquests began slowly, methodically, step by step. Neighbors joined their empire peacefully, submitting to treaties and diplomacy. When resistance was fierce, Assyrian army revealed all its might, like a furious storm. During early conquests, Assyrians preserved deep reverence for local traditions and gods. Temples remained untouchable, and faithful rulers were allowed to stay in power as vassals. They understood that governance was not only about battlefield victories, but about ability to unite different peoples into one whole. Among kings who laid foundations for this slow but sure growth will be remembered names like Shamshi-Adad. In antiquity, in an era when stars still remained silent, great Shamshi-Adad ruled Assyria. His dominion, skillful as dance, expanded across northern Mesopotamia. Cities, like precious necklaces connected by roads, became power strongholds protecting his lands. Inscriptions, like patterns on time's glass, praised his exploits, greatness, and devotion to gods. Shamshi-Adad, like a wise priest, understood word power and elevated his fame through ages. When Shamshi-Adad left his mark in history, he didn't suspect this was only the beginning of great tradition that grew roots in future Assyrian kings' hearts. Imperial propaganda became art, embodying in words and images divine powers, might, and favor. But even greatness couldn't protect Assyria from fate's whirlwinds. With Shamshi-Adad's death came decline period. New light ignited in the south where Babylon under Hammurabi began rising. Assyria plunged into darkness. Cities froze under night sky. But Ashur's spirit, inextinguishable and eternal, awaited its hour. Assyrians, like rivers, patiently flowed, preparing for new ascent. They understood that true might wasn't achieved instantly, like wave splash, but created gradually, like stone by stone on construction site. And when time came for Assyria to rise again, it would resurrect like unshakable flood. As twilight deepened over ancient Mesopotamia, casting long shadows on temples, fields, and rivers, Assyrians sharpened their blades, strengthened their walls, and quietly prepared for the day when their banners would again rise high in heavens. The world hadn't yet seen Assyria's full strength, but would soon know its greatness. When rivers' light mists enveloped low hills and old cities of northern Mesopotamia, Assyria awakened from century-long sleep. Patience accumulated over centuries approached its limit, and hidden might, concealed in labor and persistence, was ready to burst like thunder across lands. It all began with a series of new kings, rulers whose ambitions reached beyond Ashur's walls, beyond familiar plains and homeland rivers. These were people mastering governance, art, and conquest's harsh necessity. They gradually expanded Assyria's influence, beginning cautiously, then with growing confidence, leaving indelible mark in history. In antiquity, when might and war reigned over earth, great Ashurnasirpal II stood at new Assyrian Empire's gates. His soul was fiery like eternal fire flame. His ambitions rose to peaks like eagle over Tigris's shifting stream. Under his wise wing, Assyria transformed from desert corner into great military force. He changed the army, implementing new strategies, uniting cavalry speed, infantry might, and siege cunning. Now Assyrians were not only warriors, but strategy masters. Their strikes were precise, like blade-piercing enemy armor. They lured opponents into traps, cut their supply routes, and struck like ghosts, invisible and deadly. Under Ashurnasirpal II's leadership, Assyrian Empire rose to new level of military art, becoming terror for enemies and legend for allies. Under Ashurnasirpal II's leadership, Assyrians conducted campaigns far beyond familiar territories, into lands that long resisted authority. City after city fell, yielding either after negotiations or under powerful strike. But the leader understood governance subtlety. He respected local customs, appointed faithful rulers, and preferred tribute to destruction. To mark his victories, he moved the capital to New City Kalhu, or Nimrud. There palaces rose above earth, decorated with bright reliefs radiating conquest scenes, hunting, and divine grace. These masterpieces were living reflection of greatness. Upon entering hall, everyone clearly understood. King didn't just rule country, he was chosen by gods, embodiment of order and fate. Sculptures depicted Ashurnasirpal, majestic and calm, surrounded by winged genies and divine spirits. Reliefs showed feasts where he sat with guests under stars, celebrating unity and strength. Kalhu became wonder. Streets crowded, temples rose to sky, gardens scattered with exotic plants from all empire corners. In that city, grown from might and dream, every stone testified to great Assyrian people's ambition. Under Shalmaneser III's rule, Ashurnasirpal's heir, empire flourished like magnificent tree whose roots went deep into Ashur's earth, while branches beyond Syria to Zagros mountains and distant Mediterranean Sea. New roads were laid connecting provinces with center, while messages and orders raced swiftly, carried by tireless messengers crossing watchtowers with king's news that rushed through expanses. Along borders spread fortresses, exactly like ancient dragon's teeth, protecting lands from foreign invasions. In their walls lived not only warriors, but wise men, merchants, and priests, creating life mosaic within stone walls. Assyrians were not only conquerors, but world builders. They introduced order, like artist embodying his conception on captive canvas. Magnificent carving works, formidable weapons, colorful art. All this was woven together in their workshops. They didn't forget their gods, whose names sounded mighty in every stone temple, in every prayer, in every hammer blow on anvil. Priests and priestesses carefully guarded sacred fires, offered prayers, and interpreted omens, gazing at starry sky, sacrificial animals' livers, and birds' swift flights. For Assyrians, success in war and governance wasn't reduced to human efforts. This was God's will, reflection of cosmic order. Each victory confirmed that Ashur and gods were with them, guiding their deeds and fates. As Assyrian empire spread, it became not only force determining Mesopotamia's fate, but influencing world history. Neighbors and distant peoples spoke of them with mixed feelings: reverence, admiration, and fear. Their names flew in air, sounded like music in squares, sang in cozy taverns, and whispered in palaces like spells. But even amid this magnificence, ordinary Assyrian inhabitants' life flowed in its calm channels. Farmers plowed fields by river. Craftsmen worked in cedar and copper aroma, while families gathered in clay houses, retelling legends about good and heroes under sparkling sky. Children played in courtyards, chasing each other past lion and bull statues, their laughter ringing in evening air filled with warmth and magic. Little did they know about political intrigues, but they lived in a world rising on support of strength, discipline, and fate's anticipation. Under Mesopotamian stars stood Assyrian empire, firm, unshakable as rock, swift as desert whirlwind, patient as eternal rivers that sheltered civilization seeds in their waters. Its age of greatness was only beginning. Eternity stretched before it. Time, like river, smoothly carried away even greatest empires. So with Assyria, mighty force that seemed unshakable, but now felt beneath itself, light trembling, barely perceptible, but harbinger of changes. At great height of its might in 7th century BCE, Great Assyria ruled from Persian mountain peaks to Mediterranean shores. Its rulers, Tiglath-Pileser III, Sargon II, Sennacherib, Esarhaddon, Ashurbanipal, created huge empire of force and magnificence. Their military detachments broke through continents, while their palaces sparkled with gold and ivory. Magnificent libraries collected knowledge from all world corners. However, within this magnificence began appearing invisible cracks. Relentless conquest march stretched Assyria to limit. Each new province required garrisons, governors, tax collectors. Each subordinate tribe needed careful observation, as loyalty, growing from fear, was fragile thread. From trade routes that once bore gold for Assyria flowed new ideas, ambitions, and quiet, anxious feeling. While magnificent Assyrian monarchs deepened their striving, their palaces turned into luxury and seclusion oases. Within these walls, feasts and religious rites hid slow decay of unity and purposefulness. Within royal family and ambitious generals arose conflicts like invisible rot under brilliant facade. Nevertheless, Assyria held on. It resisted rebellions, defeated old and new enemies, maintaining fragile control over its vast domains. But price was high. Cities were destroyed, peoples radically exiled and relocated. Fear held empire together, but fear could quickly turn to hatred. Among many peoples once subjected to mighty Assyria stood out ancient and proud Babylonia. Babylonians long endured under Assyrian yoke, but their hearts remembered Hammurabi's golden age. Babylon's temples were restored by Assyrians, but city spirit remained restless, ready for freedom. This day approached slowly, gathering strength far from Assyrian eyes. In east, in Median mountainous lands, rose new people, Medes, experienced horsemen and brave warriors. Medes carefully watched Assyrian actions. In ancient Babylon's expanses, indignation boiled like hidden coals, ready to flare under ashes. In west, in small kingdoms, once suppressed, dreams of freedom awakened. Strike came unexpectedly from different directions. First rebelled distant provinces, isolated and easily yielding. Each rebellion weakened Assyria. At this time, Babylon found its defender, Nabopolassar. This Chaldean leader understood that Assyria's strength lay in its invincibility myth. But this myth was crumbling. Nabopolassar, wise and persistent, first secured Babylon's independence around 626 BCE. With force and wisdom, he strengthened cities' stone walls, united tribes and allies, inspired Medes to resistance. Their alliance, like skilled hands weaving, carefully combining threads, created impenetrable protection like eternal and strong tapestry. At this time, Assyrian kings fell, struggling to heal their empire. Internal storms, economic crises, and exhausted armies weakened them. When war covered them, these weren't single strikes. but many small flames steadily spreading. In 614 BCE, Medes first struck, devastating ancient Ashur, leaving it to force and destruction power. Powerful blow struck Assyrian identity's very heart, causing unprecedented damage. 2 years later, in 612 BCE, Nabopolassar and Median allies stormed Nineveh. This magnificent city, known for libraries, palaces, and colossal winged bull statues, came under siege fire. For months, defenders fought with desperation. But opponents' numerical superiority was enormous, and allies betrayed the city. Finally, Nineveh's walls fell. City plunged into flame and destruction. Its riches were plundered, inhabitants scattered. The 11th proud city, human creativity wonder, turned to ashes and silence. Among Charon's ruins stood Ashur-uballit II, a Syrian general trying to gather empire fragments. But time was merciless. Assyria, once great, disappeared like mist before sun. But from ashes, new life was reborn. In Babylon, Nabopolassar celebrated victory and revival. Ancient city that patiently suffered now awakened. Its temples were restored. Merchants opened new paths. Scholars and priests returned to their duties. Babylon rose again, ready to take its place as civilization heart, with its towers and ziggurats. Under Mesopotamian starry radiance, when Euphrates whispered its eternal song, world smoothly turned to new chapter. Warriors fell silent as if listening to river wisdom. Dreamers awakened, feeling change call floating in air. Babylonia, like Phoenix, rose from fallen empire's ashes, coming alive on Euphrates' banks, where destruction shadow once weighed. Now rose sparkling temple walls and streets filled with living colors and music. In this reborn city pulsed not just life, here swirled whirlwind of dreams and ambitions, sounding like greatness. Call. In time's depths was born new magnificence, as if woven from dreams and inspiration, ready to amaze future generations with its splendor. Among world theater's bustle rose King, whose name would become symbol of greatness and glory. Nebuchadnezzar II. His life and deeds were imbued with ambitions and wisdom, raised on stories about Assyrian tyranny and Babylon's freedom thirst. he inherited from father not only throne, but sacred mission to raise city to heavens, unrivaled by any other city. And Nebuchadnezzar accomplished this great deed. In 605 BCE began Nebuchadnezzar's great reign, like symphony of triumph and creativity. He was warrior, leading his armies through Syria and Judea lands, strengthening Babylonian power. But most precious to him was construction, where he remained eternal time artist. Under his leadership, Babylon transformed into city of wonders. Massive walls, so thick that 2 chariots could race on them, embraced city, protecting it. High gates decorated with blue bricks and dragon images met travelers from afar. One of most impressive achievements were Ishtar Gates, magnificent symbol of art and devotion. Like huge, precious crystal, sparkling under scorching Mesopotamian sun. Through their arches opened world of wide streets leading to picturesque markets overflowing with Arabia's distant spice aromas. Gleaming gold from mysterious Nubia, aromatic cedar wood from dense Lebanese forests, and precious lapis lazuli from mysterious lands beyond horizon. Merchants loudly advertised their goods, while children merrily played between colorful stalls. Priests and scribes passed through crowd with expression of impenetrable dignity. In city's very heart, rising to heavens like stairway leading upward, rose magnificent ziggurat. It was believed this served as inspiration for later legends about Tower of Babel. In woven pattern of mud, brick, and stone, rose architectural mass like great temple steps leading to sky. Here melted bridge between earthly world and heavenly grandeur, between human heart and divine dome. But among this magic stood out one wonder: magical hanging gardens of Babylon. Legend, intertwining with truth, tells of love that intertwined fates. They say King Nebuchadnezzar erected hanging gardens for Queen Amytis of Media, comforting her in longing for green hills and lush valleys of homeland. Gardens, like terraces, opened gates to world of wonders and fulfilled dreams. Rising high in sky, surrounded by tree greenery, bright flowers, and murmuring waterfalls, hanging oasis above city, engineers possessing unique knowledge of irrigation and landscape design created pump and aqueduct systems for extracting water from Euphrates, ensuring every tree and flower's prosperity in dry climate. Travelers who saw these gardens were amazed by them, whispering about paradise where earth and sky seemed connected, where vines hung like curtains and flower scents filled air. Thus Babylon transformed from simple stone city into dream city, place where human hands, inspired by love and faith, created divine scale beauty. In Nebuchadnezzar's vision was not only monument grandeur, but deep influence on Babylon's soul. Temples, especially magnificent Esagil, dedicated to Marduk, pantheon god, were restored and expanded. Festivals like Akitu came alive again, strengthening connection between king, people, and gods. Justice lay at Nebuchadnezzar's rule foundation. He cared for agriculture, implemented fair tax system, supported canals and irrigation systems. Markets overflowed with grain, dates, wool, ceramics, bringing wealth not only material, but spiritual. In trembling light of rising Babylon. In golden era flourished scholars' minds and scribes' pens. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine were crowned with glory. Babylonian astronomers contemplating planet maps, predicting eclipse secrets, laid foundations in cosmos basics, on clay tablets like song, their records in thin handwriting wove, becoming treasury for future ages. Gazing from his terrace at world, Nebuchadnezzar, aged with wisdom through centuries, saw transformed world, where once were only ruins and memories, now crowned civilization heart, city where gods walked among mortals, where kings' dreams bloomed in bricks, flowers, and light. Under night's velvet tent, when Euphrates whispered its age-old secrets and stars caressed sleepy eyelids, Babylon seemed living monument of human magnificence. In these moments before dawn, when cool wind revived forgotten gardens, and ziggurat shadow seemed frozen in unknown wisdom, one could feel even gods paused, admiring what was erected. Under Nebuchadnezzar's hand, Babylon became eternal artwork. Most magnificent cities, despite their fame, must bow before time's great cycle. Under Babylon's golden age, bright sun bloomed new impulse, lurking in distance in east, beyond merchants and envoys. New force came peacefully, carrying vision of unity, respect, and destiny. It was embodied by great Cyrus, whose name would be glorified not only as conqueror, but noble leader. Cyrus, born around 600 BCE, among Persians inhabiting mountainous places of Iran. From ages' depths emerges legend about Cyrus, whose roots go into misty times of warriors and shepherds. His ancestors were connected with earth, their souls permeated with ancient teachings about loyalty and honor. Mysticism surrounded Cyrus's early life, years as if heavens knew he was destined for great deeds. When he ascended throne, his heart didn't thirst for conquests. First, he united quarreling Persian tribes, not by violence, but wisdom and righteousness. Then his gaze turned to magnificent Median Empire ruling mountain regions. In epic campaign, Cyrus overcame Medes not through noisy destructions, usually accompanying new empires' rise, but wise respect and interaction. Medes became allies, not subjects. Their customs were honored. Their warriors joined Persian ranks. Thus, he could create Achaemenid state. Cyrus's vision had no equal in ancient world. Where others reigned by fear, he governed by respect. Where others demanded submission, he offered protection and partnership. He saw might emerging from diversity and united many peoples of his empire with skillfully woven thread of tolerance, law, and common prosperity. As Cyrus's star surged, great cities of Mesopotamia closely watched him. Babylon, magnificent and proud, observed cautiously. Kings, Nebuchadnezzar's heirs, tried to preserve magnificence he created. Within Babylon's walls began lurking anxiety and tension. Political disagreements, economic difficulties, and burden of preserving huge heritage became palpable. Meanwhile, Cyrus relentlessly moved west like tide. He conquered Lydia in Anatolia, absorbing its riches and knowledge. Under his banner, he united distant cities and tribes, not erasing their unique cultural features. He proclaimed that every person had right to worship their gods, speak their language, observe their customs. Thus he became not only conqueror, but liberator, By 539 BCE, Cyrus approached Babylon's conquest. His approach to city didn't include destruction. Cyrus understood that Babylon was not simply place for destruction, but historical heart, where laws, sciences, and beliefs originated that determined humanity's beginning. Destroying it would be like destroying part of existence itself. Instead, Cyrus carefully pondered. From ancient records, among which stands out Cyrus' cylinder, revered as first written human rights declaration in history, traces aspiration not to destroy Babylon, but revive it. Final battle proved swift and decisive. Cyrus's troops, under General Gobryas's command, found unique way to penetrate city, bypassing long siege. They altered Euphrates' flow, lowering water level so soldiers could secretly approach walls at night. Babylon fell, not in battle, not in bloodshed, often accompanying victory. Cyrus didn't enter city as destroyer, but savior. He honored Marduk, Babylon's main god, and freed political prisoners. Great Cyrus allowed exiled peoples, including those suffering in captivity in distant Babylon, to return to their lands, restore their sacred places. He not only respected ancient customs and laws, but restored sanctuaries shaken by centuries. Babylonians, tired of endless discord and tyranny, received him with joy and gratitude. Under his rule, Babylon continued its bright path. Temples rang with hymns, markets bustled with trade, libraries preserved ages' wisdom. City, becoming part of mighty empire, didn't lose its grandeur and central significance in spiritual and intellectual life of that time's world. But as always, history's wheel continued turning, and Babylon no longer owned its fate. Magnificent, precious stone, crowning crown, extending from Indus River to Mediterranean Sea. It became symbol of new era, where victories merged with friendship, respect, and common aspiration. Cyrus Great conquered Babylon, not with weapons, but mercy, showing world path where might neighbors, compassion. Under stars, illuminating golden city, Euphrates sang new melody full of tenderness and eternity. Empires may fall, but dreams live forever. Babylon's breath slowed, but didn't die. Under Cyrus Great's leadership and his successors' leadership, Babylon came alive like heart beating in new rhythm, calm but full of life. Cyrus's rule mixed old and new with unique balance. Esagil and Etemenanki temples continued attracting worshippers. Priests mysteriously whispered prayers to Marduk, recording stellar movements on clay tablets. Merchants animated markets with their spices and fabrics, while scribes carved contracts and prophecies in unique script. Babylon became not only cult and trade place, but crossroads connecting Achaemenid Empire. From afar, from secret corners of Persia, India, Egypt, and even distant lands came caravans, bringing not only goods, but ideas and people. This flow reminded of great rivers, mixing and enriching life fabric. Cyrus, wise ruler, looked at his empire's prosperity with cautious attention. He protected justice and respect, defending conquered lands' temple, creating taxation and governance systems. He gave local rulers freedom, preserving their traditional authority under condition of empire loyalty. Thus was born unique garden, where each flower, like each people, flourished under one wide sun, serving entire kingdom. After Cyrus's tragic loss in 5th century BCE, his offspring Cambyses ascended throne. Bold and powerful, he expanded empire possessions, conquering Egypt. Now Achaemenid state stretched from Aegean shores to Indus sandy expanses. Its power was so extensive, it seemed to encompass entire known world. However, under Darius I, seated on throne around 5th century BCE, empire reached its highest bloom. Darius was great strategist and administrator. He divided empire into provinces called satrapies, each governed by satrap directly subordinate to king. To ensure loyalty and control, he created spy network known as King's Eyes and Ears, directly informing royal court. Imagine how he erected Royal Road, this ancient wonder bridge stretching over 1,500 kilometers. Couriers raced along it from Sardis to Susa in just few days, carrying important messages, goods, and decrees. Trade flourished. Ideas flowed like rivers. Traveler could peacefully walk from Greek shores to Persian mountains, protected by Persian peace. Even monetary affairs became more organized. Golden darics and silver sigloi circulated throughout empire, simplifying commerce and uniting peoples with invisible threads of trust. In Babylon, life gracefully adapted to new realities. Persian administrators respected Babylonian traditions. Festivals didn't cease. Education flourished. Under vigilant eyes of ancient Babylon astronomers, carrying their star and planet observations under Persian rulers' patronage, were born first sounds of science and mathematics. But time spares no one's aspirations. Gradually, thin cracks penetrated Babylon's soul. Persian influences administrative power, despite its effectiveness, gradually undermined ancient cities' independence. Decisions once made in Etemenanki shadow were now dictated from afar, from eastern palaces. Taxes, though fair, became heavy burden on inhabitants' shoulders. Sincerity, born in gratitude, gradually yielded to indifferent obedience. With new rulers' arrival, especially Xerxes I, bonds between Babylon and Persia weakened even more. In beautiful Babylon flared rebellions, blazing bright flames of old glorious days and freedom thirst. Xerxes crushed them with harsh authority and unrelenting heart, burned sacred statues and might symbols. City seemed to remain magnificent, but impenetrable sadness hid in its stones. Decline began imperceptibly, like quiet, sure erosion. Trade continued. Scholars continued studying stars, but city heart grew quieter each year. World changed. New empires rose. But even amid this grandeur, Babylon's influence didn't disappear. Over time, its knowledge, laws, legends, and fantasies penetrated civilization's very essence. Its history lived in every clay tablet, every priest's star chart, every tower stone striving toward heavens. Though Cyrus Great had long passed into past, he understood eternal truth. Greatest empires are built not only by sword, but in people's hearts and dreams. And though Babylon's walls may crumble, streets fade, its spirit will remain alive forever. Under stars, gentle light smoothly circling over great Euphrates, city peacefully dozed, its whisper carried through ages, eclipsing hearts and lands. For empires may fall, but ideas are eternal. In distant lands, changeability floated in air, and history winds excitingly, whispered across ancient plains. Despite Babylon's unwavering stand under wide Mesopotamian sky, its life connections grew thinner each year. From west came new force, unlike anything old kings saw only in dreams. It came not from Arabian sandy deserts, not from Persian rocky peaks, but from winding shores and lush hills of Greece. At power's peak rose young king, whose name would ring with such force that it would shake even Babylon itself. Alexander, grown in Macedonia and student of great Aristotle, burned with ambitions and unquenchable aspiration. For him, world didn't seem great enough. He thirsted for conquests, not only for power, but immortal glory, surpassing even death itself. When his eyes turned to Persia, Alexander had already proven his mastery as military leader. He defeated Darius III, Persian king, at Issus and repeated his victory at Gaugamela. With each triumph, ancient Persian empire crumbled beneath his feet. However, for Alexander, victories over enemy armies were only part of path. He strove to inherit souls of lands he conquered. Magnificent and wise, Babylonia awaited Alexander. In 3rd century BCE, after triumph in Battle of Gaugamela, when Persian resistance was crushed, great conqueror entered Mesopotamia. His troops carry peace like messengers to sacred sanctuary. City gates opened peacefully. Inhabitants warmly welcomed him, giving flowers and songs. They saw not warrior, but new ruler, honoring their faith, rights, and dignity. Alexander entered Babylon with reverence to Marduk in Esagil and ordered sanctuaries restored. City amazed him. High ziggurat, blue gates, market labyrinth pulsing with life. Babylon met him not only as conqueror, but as one enchanted by its greatness. In Alexander's eyes sparkled not simply prize, but symbol of all his ambitions. He began building plans to establish Babylon as heart of his new empire, where Greek and Babylonian cultures fused into single whole. In this world, East and West met not hostilely, but understandingly. But even great kings' dreams can prove fragile. In 323 BCE, when Alexander prepared for new campaigns, illness struck him in Babylonian palace walls. Long days he fought fever, that became his irreconcilable enemy. His generals desperately watched as man who seemed invincible to them disappeared before their eyes. Rumors circulated that someone poisoned him. Others believed fate was calling him back home before he could challenge supernatural forces. Alexander died at early age, whispering that his state should pass to strongest. His magnificent empire collapsed into chaos. Great Babylon became trophy in Diadochi generals' hands, passing from one to another like sacred artifact, too valuable for destruction, but too important to be forgotten. Seleucus, one of Alexander's devoted assistants, seized control over Babylon. He understood its symbolic significance, striving to preserve temples and traditions, even while building new cities. Most famous among them became Seleucid capital, Seleucia on Tigris. Babylon long lived and breathed, becoming bridge between past and new Greek kingdoms born after Alexander's campaign. But power gradually passed to other hands. Seleucia's new streets attracted merchants and settlers, leaving aside Babylon's old brick alleys. Esagila gradually lost its pilgrims. Ishtar no longer met so numerous merchants at her gates. Ziggurat, that touched kings' and gods' hands, emptied, forgotten by time. Babylon's soul slowly faded like mist before sunrise. But even in decline, it preserved its unshakable pride. Scribes continued recording stars' movements, as if holding connection between past and future. In forgotten Babylon's heart, where time froze in forgotten God's shadow, priests unchangingly carefully guarded sacred fires. Weakening flame illuminated flickering ruins, reminding of former glorious days. While new empires ascended world throne, Babylon transformed into silent testimony of bygone greatness. Temple ruins rose above desert plains like lost treasures of forgotten civilization. But in these scattered stone remains lived antiquity spirit. They whispered about kings whose dreams reached heavens, about gardens that resisted scorching desert, about rivers that carried age-old stories. Ruins composed story about city that stretched hand to stars, remaining eternal symbol of human courage and greatness striving. Let ancient Babylon time was erased in history sand, but its spirit continued weaving humanity fate threads. Greatness, like shimmering fire, didn't die, but only transformed. Under eternal sky, by slowly floating Euphrates shores, Babylon silently dreamed, ancient and magnificent. With years, like invisible time waves, it plunged into past deeper, like mysterious city in eternity captivity. There, where once rang kings' proud steps and stars lit poets' path, now only winds played with ruins. But Mesopotamia spirit, born in world's first cities, in first words on clay tablets, in dreams that dared touch stars, continued living and breathing through ages, people remaining among ancient Babylon ruins, cultivated land as they did centuries ago. From Euphrates, silvery waters, they drew life for their crops. Shepherds led herds past temple fragments where faith fire once blazed. Children care-freely played, not suspecting that under their feet hid great civilization's traces. Time, like eternal artist, covered forgotten palaces with dust and grass greenery. Brick walls bent under nature influence, as if trying to go into past. Magnificent statues' bowed heads, their faces erased by time whirlwinds. Etemenanki Ziggurat, once rising to heavens, now abandoned. Its bricks were taken by generations, for they needed shelter, and roofs more than old world greatness. Let ancient walls dust quietly die, but Babylon's spirit continues captivating hearts like seeds carried by time wind. Hammurabi laws, carved in hard stone, became foundation for future legal systems. Priest astronomy, watching stars from temple roof heights, guided sailors, scientists, and mathematicians' path through ages and continents, their time measurements, day division into hours and minutes, still influence human life course. Myths born under Mesopotamia, boundless skies inspire stories and dreams. For centuries, past legends about unprecedented floods, about gods descending to earth, about journeys to mysterious underworld. These stories wove into sacred texts and folk traditions, becoming part of various cultures' traditions. Somewhere there, between lines, sound Gilgamesh searches for immortality, inspiring heroes and seekers of each era. Tower of Babel, striving to heavens, became symbol of ambitions and humility, living in humanity, collective imagination. Great Mesopotamian cities, names Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Akkad, Nineveh, Babylon, ceased being simple geographic points. They transformed into symbols of humanity, primitive, striving for civilization, great minds, bold hearts, eternal dreamers. They knew what it meant to create, dream, strive for unseen horizons, for what didn't yet exist but could arise. Babylon didn't fall under warlike armies' strikes or terrible misfortune. It faded smoothly, like last note of dying melody, disappeared quietly but unforgettably, leaving behind trace so deep that even when its walls turned to dust, dream remained alive. Centuries later, in Renaissance era, scholars wiped dust from ancient manuscripts, while archaeologists dug earth searching for lost cities. Exactly Babylon and its sister cities were their sacred goal. Exactly Mesopotamia light that so long dimmed, they strove to see again, to restore its glory and greatness. When ruins finally freed from earth and ancient tablet fragments were discovered, scribes, priests, and kings' voices, silent for 3,000 years, sounded again. They revealed stories of taxes and harvests, prayers and treaties, myths and wisdom. In their engraved texts sounded first great civilization's heartbeat. We listened. Today, though Babylon sleeps under dust and sand, its spirit remains alive. In every book opened seeking knowledge, in every law striving for justice, in every gaze directed to stars in amazement. Babylon lives in builders' and poets' dreams. In pulsating megapolis's dense rhythm, saturated with life, in boundless striving to find meaning that fills human soul. For Babylon never was simply walls and temples. It was always city of dreams. When sunset's last ray plunges into Euphrates' eternal waters, and stars scatter across velvety sky, as if one can hear centuries whisper, quiet, eternal, musical breath of Mesopotamia, lullaby sounding eternally, remainder of what we create with faith, beauty, and amazement lives forever.